Today we're going to talk about the top 10 foods never to eat. We're going to go into detail on how you can lower blood pressure, cholesterol, triglycerides, and blood sugar levels. Plus we're going to talk about the chronic problems that we're having in the United States as far as the state of our health. We're going to go into details of why the U.S. is leading the world when it comes to heart disease, to diabetes, and to cancer, why the leading cause of death in children other than accidents is cancer. And we're going to give you specific things on what you can do to correct these types of conditions without the use of drugs in many cases. So I want you to stay tuned. I want you to grab a sheet of paper and pencil, and I want you to get ready for a really, really informative session of why the United States is being so unhealthy and why we're having so many health problems and why other parts of the world are so much healthier than the United States. First, let's go back to our health. Back in 1900, we ended up having a situation in which we had a lot of viral problems and viral germs, infectious disease, smallpox, diphtheria, whooping cough, typhoid, pneumonia, and tuberculosis. Well, these types of conditions basically were cured during the 1900s and the advent of different types of drugs. But today we die from degenerative diseases, from heart disease, from diabetes, from cancer. 5 of the leading causes of death in the United States are directly connected to diet that we eat. Now, let me share with you real quick. This is a quote that was done many years ago by Dr. Mark Hegseth back in the 70s. And I don't like using quotes that are this old, but this quote is so strong that I want to go ahead and use it, and I'll probably use it several times throughout the next few weeks. The major causes, and this quote was given before in testimony before the U.S. Senate Committees on Hearing of Diet and Disease, which means if there was testimony before the U.S. Senate Committee on Hearing of Diet and Disease, I'm sure he was probably, under oath or making sure he was being as accurate as he could. He said, quote, "The major causes of death and disability in the U.S. are related to the diet we eat. I include coronary artery disease, heart disease, which accounts for nearly half of the deaths in the United States, several of the most important forms of cancer, hypertension, diabetes, obesity, as well as other chronic diseases." And you know what's interesting to me is, we keep thinking that we can continue to change and get healthier in this country by taking more and more drugs. It simply doesn't work. Right now in this country we have between 10 and 15 million children taking the drug Ritalin for attention deficit disorder and for ADHD. And what we found basically is we've drugged these children into a stupor so they'll behave in the classroom, not even thinking about the long-term side effects of this drug on brain development. And Ritalin is a very dangerous drug. It's in the same category as morphine, opium, Percodan, and Demerol. And it's so much easier to correct a child's behavior by simply changing the way that child eats. Perfect example. Yesterday we were on the airplane and there was a young child on the plane. The mother was feeding it just mountains of junk food. And when we started taking off on the airplane to come up and do this presentation, the child just sat in there and just screamed and screamed and screamed and screamed and screamed for 30 minutes. Well, if you've ever been on an airplane with a child that's screaming and screaming and screaming, you know that it's very, very rough to listen to that. But I told my wife, I said, well, the child's eating so much junk food that pretty soon he's going to have a hypoglycemic attack. He's probably going to pass out in his chair from all the sugar, and he'll be okay. Sure enough, about 20, 30 minutes later, the kid basically conked out from all the sugar that he'd eaten. 2 hours later, the kid's up again right before we land, starting to scream again, wanting another sugar fix. And this is how we feed our kids on a regular basis in this country, and that's one of the reasons that our children are so unhealthy. And we're going to talk about that in detail throughout this entire series. In 1900, we ate fresh agricultural food. The fresh agricultural food was grown on a farm. I know my father was a farmer. My family was basically raised on a farm. My grandparents were farmers up in Iowa. And what we've learned is this, that when they were on the farm, they didn't use crops that had a lot of different types of junk added to the crops. They didn't have crops that basically were just, completely modified with genetically engineered foods. They had crops that they could take corn, after they planted the corn, they could take corn back out from the crop, several bushels of corn, they could replant that corn and it would grow. Now with the genetic hybrids, it doesn't work anymore. And what we're doing is we're constantly adulterating the food supply, making it worse and worse and worse, causing more and more disease. Today, we process factory foods, we mill our grains, we heat our foods, we have chemicals. Our lifestyles have changed. We eat for taste, we have fast foods, we have convenient foods. Again, as I mentioned, agricultural practices have changed. And all of this has caused many of the health problems that we've had in the United States. And again, what do? We basically take the health problems and we cover them up by adding drugs to the health problems. For instance, let me give you an example. Nowadays, you have massive amounts of TV advertising that's dedicated to drugs. And the pharmaceutical corporations have found that they can basically take a drug product, they can hire a company to say the product is safe, get the product approved through the Food and Drug Administration, market it, and in many cases we have horrible, horrible side effects and the products are pulled back off the market. Let me give you a perfect example. This is an article that is from the Financial Times, Thursday, October the 6th, 2005. And if you look at the article, it says, "New broom waits to sweep through the FDA. Now, what's interesting about this, let me read you this. It's talking about the problem with the FDA, that they're suffering from an image problem. Well, the reason they're suffering from an image problem is because the products that they're promoting are killing people. So anytime you have products that kill people, there's a tendency to have image problems. I'm going to read you a quote from this. This could be a welcome news to the pharmaceutical industry, which is suffering from image problems and is struggling to find new drugs. It sees cancer drugs, I'm going to repeat this, it sees cancer drugs as a wellspring of opportunity. I'm going to repeat this. It sees cancer drugs as a wellspring of opportunity, both in terms of saving lives and increasing profits. So, read with me here. Making cancer a manageable chronic disease like diabetes would mean patients living on these new drugs for years, if not decades. So they're not necessarily interested in curing the cancer. They want to make it manageable like diabetes so they can keep you on these expensive cancer treatment drugs for years, if not decades, according to this newspaper article from the Financial Times. Now, that's to increase the profits of the pharmaceutical corporation. You think, well, why is that happening? Well, the same folks basically own the pharmaceutical corporations, own the television stations, and what ends up happening is they basically are promoting all of these drugs that don't cure anything, but just continue to keep you sick over extended periods of time. In some cases, they may reduce some of the problems associated with the conditions, but they don't necessarily take care of the conditions. Watch the commercials on TV. They'll have a new drug that's a painkiller, and it says basically, if you take this drug, you're going to feel better, live better, have more energy, et cetera, et cetera. And at the very end, they'll give you a disclaimer. By the way, this product's been shown to cause sudden death. This product's been shown to cause allergies and internal bleeding, and all of these other little problems that are associated with the drug rather than the condition that you have, in many cases are worse than the actual condition. So learn, friends. Remember, you don't have to take drugs in most cases in order to stay healthy. Let me give you another example. I had a lady come into my office a few years ago. Her name was Barbara and her husband's name was Bob. And when she came into the office, they sat down beside me, and her husband told me in confidence that he was going to divorce his wife if I couldn't help her. And I said, well, Bob, that's bad. I said, you need a marriage counselor, not a nutritionist. And he goes, well, we've tried that. It hasn't helped. Her health is affecting every aspect of our relationship. She told me that she was suffering with the following conditions, that she had fatigue, insomnia, sinus trouble, indigestion, heartburn, constipation, allergies, bleeding gums, and headaches. She went on to tell me that she had stress, weak muscle tone, menstrual problems, PMS, back pain, varicose veins, and she was irritable, nervous, and depressed. When I did some testing on her, we found she had hypoglycemia. When we found she had hypoglycemia, I told her that we had good news for her because it would be easy to correct a lot of the conditions, because a lot of her conditions were basically being caused by the low blood sugar or hypoglycemia because of her diet. And her response was very succinct. She said, well, why should I listen to you? Why should I do what you say? I consider myself to be healthy. And I said, Barbara, you've literally checked off everything on my health questionnaire form, and you're telling me that you're healthy. How are you defining health? And she said, I'm defining health because I don't have in the following way. I don't have heart disease, I don't have diabetes, and I don't have cancer, so I consider myself to be healthy. So basically, in essence, what she was doing is she was telling folks, as long as she wasn't dying from a degenerative disease and she could walk in an upright position on a downhill slope with a breeze to her back, I guess, that she was considering herself to be healthy. And see, and that's how a lot of people live. I mean, go to the grocery store, any grocery store you'd like, anywhere in the country, and watch what people buy and what they put in their carts. I'm amazed that people still buy white flour and white bread and milled grains and milled grain products, but it's in the grocery store product and in the shelves. For instance, let me give you an example. Look in your medicine cabinets. You're going to find anti-cough medicines, decongestants, inhalers, antacids, tranquilizers, aspirins, sedatives, painkillers. The list goes on and on and on. Now, let me share something with you. If you've got a problem with an upset stomach, you don't have a deficiency of an antacid. In most cases, these antacids interfere with acid production in the intestinal tract and in the stomach, and what ends up happening there is your body can't digest the food properly, and the conditions that you have simply grow worse. So antacids don't necessarily treat the problem, which is basically acid indigestion and gastric upsetness. It basically decreases the body's ability to produce the acid, which your body needs to digest the food. If you don't produce enough hydrochloric acid in your stomach, in most cases you have acid indigestion. Now, if you put antacids into your stomach which stop or prevent the production of hydrochloric acid, your body can't digest the food properly. And when that happens, you can't get the nutrients or the energy or the vitamins or the minerals or the essential fats or anything else from the food that you need if you can't digest it. And so it's your first day of illness, you start taking these antacids. Very, very unhealthy thing to do. Remember, we don't take antacids and aspirin because we have a deficiency of these substances in our bodies. These products do only one thing, and that is they treat the symptom. They do not correct or cure anything. Very important that you know that. Another thing that's interesting, aspirins have been linked to increase for 44% increase in cataracts, stomach bleeding, and macular degeneration. I don't recommend that anyone takes an aspirin every day. There are natural products that you can take for blood thinning to reduce your risks of heart attack, like vitamin E, for instance, and cod liver oil, which are absolutely excellent products which don't have side effects except for they make you healthier. And that's the problem that we have in this country, is everybody's getting sicker and sicker because we're continuing to take so many drugs on a regular basis that's causing so many health problems. Plus, we don't exercise, we don't eat right, we don't have enough fiber in our diet. And friends, listen to me. It's time for us to start making healthier changes and choosing healthier lifestyles. And that's what this series is dedicated to help everyone who listens, who cares about their health, to make changes. Let me give you an example. You know, when you order a car, most things that you need on the car come as standard equipment. Like it has a windshield, it has windshield wipers, it has headlights. And so we take those things for granted. But I promise you, friends, we do the same thing with our health. If we're born healthy, we basically take our health for granted, and we continue to abuse our bodies until our health goes away. It simply doesn't work any other way. If you're going to eat certain types of foods, you're going to have certain types of problems associated with these foods. And in later segments, when we complete and talk about the complete list of the top 10 foods never to eat, you're going to find out exactly which ones we're talking about. Let me give you a little bit more information. One of the top foods we tell you never to eat are the high-fat luncheon meats. The high-fat luncheon meats include bacon, sausage, ham, pepperoni, and hot dogs. Now remember, even in the Old Testament, God forbid the Jews to eat pork products. He basically told them if they ate those types of products, and he goes on in Deuteronomy to tell you that if you don't obey what I'm telling you, you're going to have long, lingering diseases and all these horrible things are going to happen to you. It's because of what the pork products do to the body and what these high-fat luncheon meats do to the body. One of the problems associated with the high-fat luncheon meats, and even including beef products today on the marketplace, are the additives and the preservatives they put into these products. For example, one of the key things they put into the product is sodium nitrite. Now, they don't bother to tell you that sodium nitrite has been clinically proven to show that when you use sodium nitrite in your luncheon meat, that you have a 6,700% increase in pancreatic cancer. I mean, hello? I mean, why do we want to put products in our body that do that? In addition to that, it produces a compound. Sodium nitrite produces nitrosamines, which are one of the most effective agents known to man for producing malignant brain tumors in laboratory animals. So what we have to do is this. If we know that one of the top 10 foods that we should never eat or put into our bodies are the high-fat luncheon meats, and we know that they're going to cause all of these horrible, horrible side effects, why in the world do we want to continue to feed them to ourselves and to our family? A study from the University of Southern California several years ago found that children who eat just 3 hot dogs a week have 9 times the risk of leukemia versus children who do not. And so, friends, listen to me. If you don't care about yourself and your health, and you're thinking, what in the world is this guy talking about on Christian TV about health and fitness and nutrition? Hey, look, our bodies are the temple of God. We've got to take care of our bodies. We've got to take care of our bodies every single day. And I know we're only going to be here for 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years anyhow, maybe 100 years, 120 if we're really, really blessed. But the reality is, why do you want to feel horrible, look horrible, and act horrible all of your life and just have no energy? You can feel tremendous, have maximum energy, maximum output throughout your entire life, but you've got to learn to start making the healthier changes and realize one simple thing, that if you're going east on the interstate, but you want to go west, you've got to turn around. You've got to take the next exit, and you've got to go the opposite direction, or you're not going to get to where you want to go. If you're 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds overweight, and you're sick all the time, and your children are sick all the time, and you have absolutely no energy, how bad does it have to get before you start making healthier choices? And that's what we're here today to help you, to make the healthier choices. Because, see, I want God's best for you. I want you to realize that you can have life, that you can have it in abundance, that you can feel better than you've ever felt any day of your life. I'm 51 years old this year. I feel absolutely wonderful. My energy is higher. I feel better because I have chosen to eat the right kind of foods. I've chosen to exercise, and I've chosen to take care of myself. I want God's best for you. I want God's best for your family, and I want to thank you so much for joining us on today's show. Today we're going to talk about learning the right way and learning the foods that we need to eat on a regular basis that are going to make us healthy. But before we start on that, I want to give you some interesting statistics that'll kind of emphasize why this is so important to learn to do this. Right now in the United States, let me give you some interesting numbers here. We are #1 in the world in mental disorders, #1 in the world in obesity, #1 in the world in diabetes, #1 in the world in cancer, #1 in the world in medical costs, #1 in the world in drug costs, and #1 in the world in doctors per capita. In other words, we have more doctors per 100 people in this United States than any other country in the world. Now, doesn't it seem strange to you and to me and to hopefully anybody who has a reasonable ability to think through this, that why is the U.S. leading the world when it comes to all of these statistics that aren't really very pleasant? Well, I know a lot of people are constantly telling me over the years, well, it has nothing to do with our lifestyle choices, it's all genetics. And now they've unwound the human genome, and they're saying that basically we're going to find all kinds of ways to correct the conditioning of our bodies by changing our genetic structure. Let me tell you something, friends. That's hogwash, okay? 20% of what we become is based upon our genetics. The other 80% is based upon lifestyle choices. I mean, you can sit there all you want to do and say, I'm going to curse the calories in this food, which I've seen people do, which amazes me. I'm going to eat this whether it makes me sick or not, because I'm just going to believe it's not going to make me sick. And basically, you're going to end up getting sick. And it's something that we can't do. We can't. There's a causal relationship on our food, what we eat, and what becomes in our bodies. Let me give you some more statistics. We have managed to poison our food supply. We have managed to poison our water supply. We have managed to poison our air supply. We've managed to poison our shampoos and personal care products. We put toxic ingredients like sodium lauryl sulfate into our shampoos, which are extremely poisonous. Get it on our skin, get it in our eyes, get it on our scalp. Let me give you a perfect example. Take a clove of garlic, cut it in half, fresh clove of garlic, rub it on the bottom of your foot. You'll taste that garlic in your mouth in 30 minutes. Our bodies are a giant porous membrane. That's why a lot of medications are now applied topically. You have subdermal patches, you have patches that go right on the skin, and poison goes in the system right through the skin. That's why it's very important not to put this into your body. And if that's not enough, then we use dryer sheets, which a lot of folks do that on a regular basis, which are loaded with toxic chemicals, which coat all of our clothes in toxic chemicals because we like to make them feel soft. I mean, it's no wonder that we're sick in this country and we keep getting sicker and sicker. Now, if that's not enough, what we've done to ourselves, look what we've done to our children. In the United States right now, our children are #1 in the world in obesity and #1 in the world in the prescription of psychotropic drugs. Let me explain to you what that means. We have between 10 and 15 million children in the United States that use drugs like Ritalin and Adderall. 85% of the world supply of Ritalin is used in the United States. The other 15% is pretty much used in Canada, with a little bit in Great Britain. Now, doesn't it seem strange to anybody but to me that we have this plague of children that have to be drugged into a stupor to be able to sit around in the classroom and behave? I mean, think about that for a second. No other country in the world has to drug its children into a stupor using psychotropic Class II drugs. Now, let me share something with you. Ritalin is a Schedule II drug. It's in the same category with morphine, opium, Percodan, and Demerol. If a cocaine addict is given Ritalin, the cocaine addict can't tell whether he was given Ritalin or cocaine. No other country in the world puts their children through all of these compulsory immunizations that we do in the United States. And we know that some of these immunizations, like the measles vaccine, is suspect in the development of autism. And by the way, we lead the world in autism in children also. So we have to understand something. Why are we doing this to our bodies, and why are we continuing to do it on a regular basis? No other country in the world does except the United States. Now, after we've poisoned ourselves into degenerative disease, we then spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars every month taking drugs that in most cases make us even sicker. I've had folks come into my office that are taking up to 25 prescription drugs at one time because the drugs are causing so many side effects, they keep taking additional drugs to cover the side effects of the other drugs. Then after our bodies can't take it anymore, we end up with heart disease, we end up with diabetes, and then we end up with cancer. Then what we use for heart disease is we give people Coumadin or rat poison to treat the heart disease, or we give them statin drugs, which we know cause skeletal muscle necrosis and all kinds of other horrible muscle wasting diseases, along with kidney damage. And then when these drugs finally give us cancer, we use chemotherapy, which is so poisonous that it makes our hair fall out and our bodies end up vomiting trying to get the chemotherapy out of our systems because we're trying to, quote, cure the diseases that are being caused by our lifestyle choices and the other drugs that we're taking. Now, what we've done in this country, we've allowed big business to dominate our lives in every area. We've allowed pharmaceutical companies to reduce us to a loaf of bread. You know, it's interesting to me. In Proverbs, it talks about a man who goes to see a prostitute. And it says basically that we've allowed that prostitute to reduce us to a loaf of bread because basically that's what we become when we go to her because we're giving her a loaf of bread for the sexual favors that she gives us. We've done the exact same thing to the pharmaceutical companies. We've allowed them to reduce us to a loaf of bread. Now remember, I read you you this in one of the other sessions that we've done. I'm going to read it again because it's that important. It goes, new broom waits to sweep through the Food and Drug Administration of the FDA. And what it says is this. New broom means they're having a change in the FDA. This could be a welcome news to the pharmaceutical industry, which is suffering from image problems and struggling to find new drugs. It sees cancer drugs as a wellspring of opportunity, both in terms of saving lives and increasing profits. Making cancer a manageable chronic disease like diabetes would mean patients living on these new drugs for years, if not decades. Now, I'm not hearing anybody say anything about curing cancer in these drugs. What I'm saying is they want to make cancer like diabetes so folks can stay on the drugs. See, you have to remember something. These pharmaceutical corporations are publicly traded corporations. They have a fiduciary responsibility to their stockholders to increase their profits. They have a fiduciary responsibility to make as much money as they possibly can. They have a fiduciary responsibility to put every single person, if at all possible, on their drugs in the United States. And they've done a very good job doing that. The pharmaceutical corporations are completely dominating us as far as what we watch on the evening news, etc., as far as their commercials. The commercials come on and say, if you take this drug, you'll run through the field and feel great and chase butterflies. And then it says, oh, by the way, side effects include sudden death and cardiac arrest. What is that? I mean, I'd rather go ahead and have a little problem with something else that I can correct with nutrition than I would be taking a drug that causes all these side effects. And friends, and that's what's happened to us in the United States. We've continued to take more and more and more drugs. That's why this madness has got to stop. And that's why I've gone with Breakthrough Ministries, and we've developed this program, this DVD series that we have available, this Let's Get Healthy program, and we're making it available because we want you to understand that there's natural ways to look at health. There's natural ways of eating right that can help you to feel great and look great every single day. So what we want to go ahead and do now is we want to start on our Let's Learn the Right Way program today. Now, I hope you don't mind me getting on a soapbox and on a tear for just a second, but I tell you, I've worked with thousands of folks on a one-on-one basis. And it just bothers me that you cannot believe to the point when people come to my office and they're dying with drug-induced diseases. And it saddens me because the reality is I'm not saying that all drugs are bad all the time. In some cases, they're necessary. But this chronic habitual use of constant drugs and this drugging of our children into drug-induced stupors in the classroom, it's got to stop. And friends, if we just get together as a nation and we just tell the schools, no, I'm not putting my child on this drug. And then if we as a parent take natural programs to help this child, like putting that child on a tablespoon of cod liver oil, which they learned to do in England, which vastly increased the IQ scores and helped to get rid of attention deficit disorder without drugs. Cod liver oil, omega-3 fats feed the brain. Important. All of my kids take cod liver oil every single day. And I take it every single day. Does it taste good? Nah, you get used to it. Do I like it? Nah, probably not, but it still tastes good. It doesn't mean anything to me because I know it's something that I need to do for my own health and for the health of my children. And the kids, they don't even seem to mind it because they started taking it in their bottles when they were little babies, you know, teaspoon or a couple drops a day or whatever whether their ages were, and they're used to it. So it's not an issue. So if you train up your children in the way they should go when they are old, they'll not depart from it. But if you let them eat whatever they want to eat, then you end up with children that are obese, children that are unhealthy, children that have cancer, and children that have ADD. Friends, doesn't have to be this way. Now let's learn the right way. We are nutritionally undereducated. Most of the food in America today will support life, but it won't sustain health. Let me explain to you what that means. That means basically that you get enough calories that you can go on your day-to-day activities and you can get through life, but you feel horrible and you suffer with chronic degenerative diseases. For instance, let me give you an example with arthritis. Arthritis is something that's kind of insidious because it kind of creeps up on you. But now let's look at rheumatoid arthritic conditions. Rheumatoid arthritic conditions in most cases be completely corrected by getting rid of the nightshade variety of vegetables in our food supply. That includes potatoes, eggplant, bell peppers, and tomatoes. I've had folks come into my office before and they've said, we've got really bad problems with our fingers, we can't open jars, our hands hurt all the time. And I said, what do you eat? They eat eggplant, bell peppers, tomatoes, or white potatoes. And I say, well, you've got to cut out the ketchup, you've got to cut out the tomato sauce. Well, I can't do that, I'm Italian. I'm like, what do you mean you can't do that? You know, use something different. Well, no, I don't want to, I want to use tomato sauce. And I said, well, do you want to correct this problem? Well, no, not if it means I have to stop using tomato sauce. You see the problem. You've got to be coachable. You've got to be teachable. You've got to realize there are certain things that I've got to do and choices got to make. Let me give you an example. If you're 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds overweight and you feel absolutely horrible, why in the world do you think that if you keep making the decisions that cost you to get to this point, that it's going to get any better? I mean, if you feel so bad every day, you can't get out of bed, you get up tired, you walk around tired, you feel like you're in a stupor, you feel like you're in a fog all day long, why do you think if you keep doing the same things that got you to that place, that's going to get any better? It simply can't. Let's learn the right way. Our food keeps us alive, but it does not keep us healthy. That's why supplementation, eating the right foods, is so important. Let me read you this. This is a testimony before the United States Senate Subcommittee by Dr. Mark Hegg said, the major causes of death and disability in the U.S. are related to the diet we eat. I include coronary artery disease, heart disease, which accounts for nearly half of the deaths in the U.S., several of the most important forms of cancer, hypertension, diabetes, obesity, as well as other chronic diseases. Now you think, wow, that's new information. No, it's not. That information is almost 30 years old. And the sad part about it is you were never told that information because that information came along with a whole bunch of other suggestions from these groups of people back then saying, hey, we need to cut back this, cut back this, cut back this. The government didn't want to do it because the food lobbyists stopped it because they don't want people saying how bad their food was. It wasn't until this year that we're getting trans fats out of our food supply. Let's learn the right way. Nearly 4 out of 5 people in the U.S. have some sort of disease, not serious enough to warrant medical attention, but neither can they boast of good health. Look in your prescription, look at your medicine cabinets, antacids, inhalers, tranquilizers, sedatives, painkillers, aspirin, acetaminophen. The acetaminophen is one of the biggest, most toxic products that have ever been promoted on the American population. If you have just 3 or 4 acetaminophen tablets and get a glass of alcohol and drink it, you can need liver transplant after one time. It is that poisonous to the liver, but yet we drink it all the time. And when you get food things like this nighttime cold relief, they put acetaminophen and alcohol in it at the same time. I mean, what do they stop thinking? They know how toxic this is. Over 50% of all liver damage and liver problems are caused by acetaminophen and alcohol. But yet we continue to take that product like it's no big deal. Come on, friends, let's learn the right way. Heart disease, cancer, cardiovascular disease, leading causes of death in America. You can look at this chart behind me. All of these are directly related to the food and the diet that we're eating. Let's learn the right way. If you take time to read and interpret labels, foods don't require nutritional labeling to the extent that I say they should, as far as still allowing foods to go in and have trans fat labeled 0 trans fats if it's below a certain percentage. Taught how to prepare food, we're taught, but we're not how to correct it or how to prepare it correctly. Foods we select, even fresh foods, have no essential nutrients. The U.S. leads the world in chemicalized food, and we lead the world in degenerative diseases. And that's why we have to learn the right way. We have to learn what a balanced meal is. And remember, a balanced meal is not what you think it is. I mean, you're not supposed to sit down and have a big pile of starch on one side of your plate with all these potatoes and French fries. A lot of folks think that if they eat French fries, that's their vegetable serving of the day. Or if they eat French fries, or if they have a tomato paste, that's their vegetable serving of the day. It's not true. All of those are junk foods. There's more sugar in ketchup than there is in ice cream, for heaven's sakes. Our folks don't understand that. And we put the sugar into our bodies, we onslaught our bodies, we eat all of these chemicalized foods, these processed foods, and we wonder why in the world we're having all of these health problems. Friends, it's 1 + 1 = 2. It always has been 2. It will always be 2. And we have to understand that we have to learn to start making the healthier choices. If we don't eat the right foods on a regular basis, see, if you go ahead and eat right for 2 or 3 weeks and you say, well, okay, I've eaten right, it's okay now, I can start eating my junk, that doesn't work. It's a consistent effort over a long period of time that gives you consistent results. The same thing, if you try to go on a weight loss program, we've talked about the top 5 ways to lose weight loss in this program and the easy way to lose weight and feel great every single day of your life. But if you try to lose all the weight in 1 month, if you got to lose 100 pounds, it's not possible. And if you try to do it quickly and you lose 5 or 6 or 7 pounds a week, you lose a lot of lean muscle mass and body fluid. And what ends up happening is you lower your own metabolic rate and you get sicker and sicker and the weight comes right back on you. That's not the right way to eat. So here's what we've got to do. We've got to understand that life is very, very important and we've got to treat it accordingly. I have seen countless lives turned around by simply making the changes in their diet and lifestyle that we've been talking about today. They've gone from sick and tired, disease-ridden to healthy and full of energy. And I want the same for you. You know, today we've talked about learning the right way, not making mistakes over and over again. Plus we've talked about why the U.S. is leading the world when it comes to heart disease, to diabetes, and to cancer, why we spend more money on health care than any other country in the world, but yet we're one of the sickest nations on the earth, why we have the leading cause of death in kids, cancer, why we have the #1 rates of obesity in children, why we have more obese people in our country than any other country in the world. And we're talking about this, and we're talking about why we learned the wrong way. So here's what we want to do today. I want you to learn the right way. We have an excellent book. It's called Maximum Energy, the Top 10 Foods Never to Eat. It goes into detail on how to lower blood pressure, cholesterol, triglycerides, and blood sugar. Remember when Pastor Parsley asked me at the station, how can you lower cholesterol? And I said, I'll send you a copy of I gave him a copy of this book. He read it on his plane coming back to Columbus and basically changed his life forever. Now, lost 35 pounds, 9 inches in his waist, took his cholesterol from over 600 down to under 200. Maximum Energy did that for him, along with other information that I sent him on my emails. Plus, we have the program called the Maximum Energy Health and Fitness Program. This is basically stopping heart disease cold in its tracks, which supplements really work. This program is absolutely amazing. The Maximum Energy Health and Fitness Program, it goes into much, much more detail than we ever could on a TV broadcast because of time constraints. And it goes into detail on different types of supplements that you should use, that you shouldn't use, what about trace mineral supplementation, how to increase energy levels, how to decrease body fat, how to increase lean muscle weight, what type of exercise should you do in detail on these different topics. Plus the supplements that I recommend are basic program supplements again. I recommend a good source of high quality protein. I recommend the Get Lean protein. I recommend HGH Stimulate, and I recommend this for everybody all of the time because I take it every single day. I've seen a huge change in my own strength and energy levels. My wife told me it helped get rid of her cellulite, which I thought was absolutely wonderful, and she did too. In addition to that, it helps to increase libido in men. It's kind of like a natural Viagra for men. It works very, very well. Plus, it's a vasorelaxant. It actually elevates HGH in the body, which actually helps to reduce the aging process. Ultimate Multiple, excellent product, all vegetable-based cellulose capsules. Natural vitamins throughout it. Vitamin B for B complex for helping you with stress and maintaining energy, maintaining a healthy heart. Also vitamin C for helping maintain a healthy immune system. Plus I recommend our cod liver oil, which is absolutely the best on the market that you can get. And what this product does is a natural, organic-based, old-fashioned cod liver oil, which is absolutely critical to use on a regular basis for omega-3 fats. And I also recommend a good iodine supplement. Now, they're very hard to find because there aren't very many good iodine supplements on the market. And what this does, it helps to give you good thyroid function. The thyroid is a master gland. If you're trying to lose weight and your thyroid's not working very well, it's impossible. The thyroid actually absorbs chlorine and fluorine from the water that you drink, so always make sure you get some type of distillation product too. We have that available at our office to get the fluorine and chlorine out. But without enough iodine, it's very difficult for your glands and your weight loss system to work properly without gaining the weight back and even trying to lose the weight. Thank you again. Keep your emails coming. Give us a call at the number on the screen if you'd like to order these products. And remember, I'll try to answer each of your emails as soon as I possibly can. And again, sign up for our weekly email since you've gotten this program at no extra cost. You can call us up at 1-800-592-4325, which is the number on the screen. God bless you, and we'll see you soon.